Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. It's Friday, February 16th. Third hour Friday can only mean one thing, at least on this show. And it's what just happened as we look back at the insanity of the week. And right now, two returning champions are with me. It's Wali Collins, stand-up comic, actor, producer. You've seen him in countless TV shows and movies. We've been in many, many shows together. He's also the creator of Wait, What? With Wali. A lot of W's, a lot of alliteration by my friend Wali Collins. It's on YouTube. Hi, Wali. How are you, brother?
I am doing well, and happy Valentine.
If Valentine's Day is over.
Oh, sorry. All right. I'm early for next year.
That's very good. And Brian Wohl's back, a stand-up comedian. He appeared in the sold-out off-Broadway musical, The Wizard of Friendship. He can be seen touring America all the time and co-host of the podcast, My Favorite Friendship. And I'm sure other things, which we'll get to later. Hello, Brian. Nice to see you.
Hey, I'm feeling great today. I spent the whole morning listening to Lil Jon's meditation album. Oh
Really?
My gosh, I'm so centered.
You feel good? I'm not familiar with, I know who Little John is, but that's like 15 years ago. He does the what? What was that? No, that wasn't.
Yeah,
yeah, that's it. That's
morning,
right.
Okay.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Okay. He released a guided meditation album this morning because the world is on fire and we need help.
Wow.
There's nothing we can do.
You're not kidding?
Like,
he did?
Lil
I
Jon,
should listen to it. Is it an affirmation or is it really a it doesn't sound like a meditation. That's more like an affirmation thing. He's just saying, yeah, okay. Or is he being calm and soothing?
It's very calm, very soothing. He does, mix in a couple of his catchphrases, but it's very calm. He'll say, yeah.
Oh,
okay. I love it.
That's great. I do a joke in my because my fiance Hen's from the Middle East. She's an actress. She does voiceovers, but there's one place she won't get hired is relaxation tapes. Because Americans, what we're like hearing, breathe in, breathe out. You have no problems. Everything's going according to plan. That's fun. And the audience laughs and they go, you're all racist. That was a test, so that's, folks, I'll be here all week. Tip your waitresses. Well, we don't have any. It's an 8-drink minimum. It's a small audience. So my friends, we got a lot to cover. We might be joined by Amanda Gail at some point. I hope so. Our friend, comedian. First of all, Donald Trump's real trial date, March 25th in New York, where me and Wali are. And Wali, if he's convicted, will you pledge with me to visit him in jail? First off, will you say, I'm going to go, if it's on Rikers, we'll take the ferry out there and visit him, whatever it takes?
If you promise we go together and you foot the bill, the ferry bill, I am in.
We're going to go. I can't wait. So look, the trial date, this is what's called a hush money case. It's really not hush money. It wasn't sex and hiding it from his wife or his country club. It was concealing it from voters right before the 2016 election. While the Access Hollywood explosion was going on, literally as the DA laid out in the indictment, October 7th, 2016, Access Hollywood tape comes out. October 10th, they reach out to Stormy Daniels going, we're going to give you money. Don't go public. Because that's how tight it was. So it was election corruption, election fraud. And I'm just hoping people care. And I just don't know. So, Brian, what do you think? Do you think it could get attention? It would be the first trial if it really happens March 25th.
I think it will get attention because this is what Donald Trump is going to use as his campaign platform because he's running out of money. He is running out of money. So I think he's going to use these trials as a platform for him to get his message out there. But I think America is exhausted. I think the part of his point is to exhaust us from caring about all of these charges. I mean, he's already charged for, 93 in the Fani Willis case, and there's 34 in this one. That's
91
bonkers.
Altogether. 90 at 100, you get a free pizza.
90.
So, Brian, that's interesting. So, Wali, do you think Trump's trying to wear us down, commit even more crimes? So we'll go like, oh my God, I just can't. Because at this point, honestly, if he committed more crimes and gets charged, his base will say, see, you're just persecuting our beloved Donald Trump. He could right now commit all the crimes he wants, and there's no way to hold him accountable.
Yes, he's great. He is great at playing victim. And he's got his MAGA people so convinced that the worse it gets, the more they're trying to get at him, the more powerful he is. I've seen interviews with some of these MAGA folks, and they believe that the more Triple A he gets into, they're like, see, they're just going after him. It's a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt. So yeah, no matter, it just amazes me how they will not see the truth of any of this.
They don't care. And joining us now, our friend Amanda Gale live from the courthouse. She's our
Yay!
reporter. No, she's not live from the courthouse. Amanda Gale, stand-up comic, writer, producer. Her writing can be seen on Reductress. She's been on this show and other SiriusXM shows. Hello, Amanda. Nice to see you.
Hi, yes, I'm so sorry I'm late. I'm sorry, guys.
It's okay. And it's funny that the black guy was on time, Wali Collins, my buddy here. And this is how it works. So, and I'm also Muslim. So me and Wali are both Muslim. And it's remarkable we're on time anywhere. That giving both things work against. So, Amanda, we're talking about Donald Trump's trial date set here in New York, March 25th. And it seems like it's a real trial date. It's the case where he paid off Stormy Daniels.
Yeah.
So, and then committed crimes to cover that up because he didn't want America to know 2 weeks before 2016 election that he cheated on his wife. And let me get your take on this. As a woman, yes, I'm making you a woman here for this. The 2016, what the story was going to be that he cheated on his wife 4 months after Melania had a baby. So instead of being there for the wife with the new child, he's out having sex with a porn star. That's what he's doing over and over and over, unfortunately, for her. So, Amanda, do you think that's meaningful to certain women where they'll be like, well, that's not just an affair. That's really a different level of scumbagness.
I mean, it depends which women you speak to. I mean, Republican women, no, they're probably like, oh, let the men be the men, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think I was saying, I don't think his base cares. I personally find the whole story kind of boring, to be honest. I mean, I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just feel like everything that Donald Trump has done, he's done such awful things from, stealing classified documents, from, totally putting us in harm's way in terms of our security and information. Focusing on this to me seems it would almost incite his base more because look at these liberals. They're obsessed with, an affair with a porn star. Like, how could look at Bill Clinton? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it almost makes us look kind of hypocritical to be so harping on him when, Bill Clinton, I mean, he was on Epstein's Island for, very good friends with one of the biggest pedophiles in history. So I don't know. I kind of feel like there's worse things that he's done that have been horrific that should be focused on. So
I agree in that if I had my choice, the January 6th trial in Washington, D.C. goes first because that was the attack on our democracy.
Yes.
And even Alvin Bragg, the DA in Manhattan, had said that he was completely open to putting this beyond it. It's only because the January 6th case is on hold right now because Trump has that whole immunity thing. But I agree with you. And the classified document case, which is really, he's charged with more than 30 counts of espionage and violating the Espionage Act. It should be called the espionage case, but our corporate media likes to normalize Donald Trump because it is the espionage case. He's not charged with violating the Classified Documents Act. There is no such thing. Right. But I agree. So, Wally, what do you think about that? I mean, if you had your choice of which Trump trials would start first, and there's 4 of them, there's no wrong answer. You just pick whatever you want. Pick your adventure, like whatever adventure. What adventure would you like to go on first? The January 6th classified documents, Fulton County, or this hush money with Stormy Daniels?
Stormy, and we've been there, done that. This espionage, I think this will be such a. Because last time we had espionage like in the 50s, right? When the 40s, when it was like that. Everybody was like against America, and every trial they had like every week there was a trial. So yeah, we haven't had a good espionage case in a while. So I think I'll go espionage.
I like it. What about you, Brian? If you had a choice, what would you like to see go first for whatever reason?
Oh, I think everyone wants espionage. I think even Donald Trump wants to be tried for espionage. That's the most interesting thing you could ever be tried for. Then he's like really like James Bond. He can finally be the American James Bond that he's always wanted to be. Banging Russian models. This is his dream. And so let's give it to him.
That would be Donald Trump. And he doesn't drink alcohol, so it'd be shaken, not stirred, a cheeseburger, I guess. I'm not sure. So let's continue on. So Donald Trump recently has gotten a lot of negative press from people like me writing about him and others on something unique, which is the mental gaffes. And it wasn't just one. I wrote about it even for CNN. So for them to let me write about that, there were a lot. He confused leaders of countries that he knows them well, like Viktor Orban in Hungary, saying he's the leader of Turkey, confusing where he was at a rally, saying he was in the wrong state, and the Republican whispered, he goes, no, you're not there, you're here, to confusing that he said he ran against George W. Bush when he ran against Jeb Bush. And I don't mean he confused their names. He described George W. Bush. The guy was in the war and he served in the military. Nope, you didn't. And there's so many. So his new defense is, I do this on purpose. I put Nikki Haley's name instead of Nancy Pelosi on purpose. And he goes, it's so hard being sarcastic. That was his big defense. Like, so first of all, he doesn't know what sarcasm means. And so Amanda, but isn't this great though? If we could just embrace our mistakes, well, that wasn't a mistake. I do that on purpose. I
Right.
like to do that. What about that one?
Well, it's like no one's made a mistake greater than me. I made the best mistake. I'm funny. I'm the funniest. Like everything I mean, the way the guy pivots is like classic, like textbook narcissism, textbook gaslighting. It's almost, it's not funny, but it is funny. You go, oh my God, way to pivot that, way to spin that and go, I was just making a joke. I'm funny. I'm the funniest president ever. It's like, so it's almost laughable, but it isn't laughable because it's our country. But
and the irony of him saying sarcasm or he was joking is this is a man who called for Saturday Night Live to be canceled, who would not
Right.
go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner
That's right.
because he didn't want to be mocked because he's thin, his skin is so thin. So he is a jokester. So Wally, what do you think? You might be touring with Trump? I mean, he's a big comedian. He's going to get Nikki Haley's name wrong. His base at the rallies, everything he says is funny. They're the greatest crowd ever. I wonder how they would respond to us. Like,
I love, it's, when he does things like that, the MAGA people kind of like turn the other way. You ever notice that? We ask them questions about, they go, oh, hey, it's a lovely day today. What's the temperature? What's but
all right, they don't want to answer that. All right.
No, they don't want to answer that. But it reminds me like someone falls down the stairs and they go, I meant to do that.
Yeah.
And really? Okay. But yeah, I mean, he puts himself in his positions, and then he kind of like stumbles out of it, and then he tried to say, yeah, it's all my idea, stupid. Yeah, haha, gotcha. That kind of thing.
I meant to say I beat Barack Obama in 2016, which he did say. He said he beat Barack Obama in 2016. He didn't run against Barack Obama. Like these aren't people misspeak. I misspeak. We all do. This is actually believing your little stupid mind something, and then it comes out in words. Brian, I mean, are you somebody, if you make a mistake, do you blame others like Donald Trump, or do you say, oh, look, it wasn't a mistake, or do you own it? You go, look, I made a mistake.
Oh, I own it completely because I am a rational human being. We're dealing with somebody who has killed satire. This is we can't. It's almost impossible to make fun of him because he is so ridiculous. We are in cartoon land now, and that's why I keep listening to Lil Jon's guided meditation. That's the only thing that's going to get me through this, because the world is crazy right now. He has one on anxiety, and it's helping me.
Well, by the way, Amanda, before you joined, Brian talked about he really does have Little John has a new meditation tape or album out. I don't know what the right term is. Downloadable. Came out this morning. He was listening, and it's a very calm, like, yeah, but instead of like, yeah, it's like, yeah. But he's not joking. It's real. He wasn't kidding. Like, I thought he was joking. Like, no, it's real. So Little John, too bad if DMX is not alive still. He could do one. It would be very against type. Like instead of yelling like, yeah, like whatever. I can't do it. That's my DMX worst impression ever. I think of people who yell.
It'll be like, where my dogs at?
Oh
How are your dogs? Feel your dogs. Hold your dogs closely and then breathe out. That kind of stuff. I'm chatting with Amanda, Gail, Brian Wohl, and Wali Collins. Have you guys ever used relaxation tapes seriously, like for anything in life? Amanda, have you used them?
Yeah, I've done like the Headspace, all the stuff. And, I'm a New Yorker, we're New Yorkers, or you get so anxious, meditation can make me more anxious. I'm like, I got to do something. But yeah, I guess that's the point of it, right?
Has it helped? Did it help?
It does help. It does help. But then you're back to your anxious, neurotic self, like as soon as it's done. So,
I had a flight, as a full-time comedian, it was hard to get nervous about flying, but I was increasingly. So I had to listen to those tapes where it ultimately ended up being like self-hypnosis on my own. It didn't mean to, but every time before I would fly, I would do the tapes. And after a while, whenever I was just hear the sounds of the tape, I would calm down. So anytime I was anxious, so it actually began to work. And every now and then I listen to it just for calmness, but I have to be honest, Amanda, I like that New Yorkers are neurotic. I like that in New York, no one says, Dean, can you repeat that slower? No one ever says slow down the way you're speaking. Everyone in line at Duane Reade or Walgreens shares with me, like, there's 4 of us and this is how fast they're moving. Are you kidding me? Like, you don't have to say, just look at each other like, come on. Like, oh, really? Like, I like this. That's why I love New York. Do you like any part of that, the neurotic tension and anger of right beneath the surface in New York? There's someone waiting to yell at you. That's what I like. Any moment.
Well, I have to share that I do listen to those kind of tapes or that kind of stuff because I learned that everything has a vibration. Everything vibrates at a certain frequency. And so like anger vibrates at a certain frequency, happiness vibrates at a certain frequency, calmness vibrates at a certain frequency. So you go on YouTube actually, and you can actually find the frequency for happiness, for rest, for confidence.
Wait, when you say frequency, do you mean it's just a sound that plays?
A tone. Yeah.
It's just a tone. That's it. There's no words. There's no guided meditation.
No, there's tones, or they'll have music, and it's in a certain key, and it'll stay in that key, and then under that music, that frequency, that tone is going, and so your brain follows that vibration, and you calm down.
Wow.
What is the tone for happiness or calm? I mean, I'm not asking you exactly, but is it like a high pitch, low pitch? Is it soothing? Like what is it?
It's a lower frequency. It's a lower vibration. The ones that kind of get you hyped up are like more like in a higher, like in a higher tone, I should say.
That's very funny. I think there's a lot of material here. We'll be doing a writing session after this because I already do a whole thing, my relaxation tape, but I didn't know there was a frequency for happiness. That should be a book title, the frequency for joy or frequency for happiness.
But we actually do it though. We actually, when we're calm, we actually do talk softer and we talk lower, but then when we get excited, you're like, I can't believe this is happening. Oh my God, this is great. But, but if you're like just chilling or if you're angry, you want to get your point across, you say, okay, now, you messed up.
Brian is almost a human frequency machine for calmness, because Brian speaks very calm, right? Brian, you are a calm guy. Brian's like, hey,
I'm generally very calm.
Wow.
Yeah, it helps me. I don't know. I grew up around a lot of hectic stuff, so I try to speak calmly to relax everyone around me, and also I feel like people are easiest to control when they're stressed, they're afraid. And so, like, the more I can mellow myself out, I can have a level head about whatever is in front of me.
I feel better already just listening to that line. I feel a little calmer. Meanwhile, I'm like a puppy on Red Bull all the time. Like, like me. Like I'm jumping around all the time. I go, that's how I am. I can't help it. Everyone who listens to the show knows every day I begin by saying how needy I am. Because I want to be your MBFF, your Muslim best friend forever, because I'm needy. And people think I'm kidding. I'm like, nope, I'm needy. It's why I do comedy. I need the attention and adulation of strangers because there's something deeply wrong with me. That's all. Let's continue on. Let's move on.
Okay.
Deeply wrong with people. This is true and insane. A poll came out this week, a reputable poll, Monmouth University, which is good polling. 1/3 of Republicans believe Taylor Swift is involved in a covert government effort to help Joe Biden win. Let me lay it out. The conspiracy theory, popularized by the right ahead of the Super Bowl last week, alleges Swift's relationship with Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce was fabricated by the government as part of a sprawling psychological operations plot, with the goal being that the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, Taylor Swift becomes even more popular, and then endorses Joe Biden, and he wins. And I'm like, how is this even a conspiracy? It seems plausible enough, right? I mean, of course, it's a big psyop. This is exactly how you figure out our plot here. So, Amanda, first of all, do you like Taylor Swift, and are you down with this conspiracy theory that the Super Bowl was, in a way, manufactured to allow Kansas City to win, to help make her more popular so that she can put Joe Biden back in office?
Well, I'll say this. If there was a conspiracy theory to make Kansas City win, it's because Taylor Swift was like, dude, I just came from Tokyo. I have 3 hours. I'm going back to Tokyo. There's no way I'm showing up for you guys to lose. So talk to the refs and make sure they win. I don't think it had anything to do with Biden. If it was her going, they have to win. Why am I here? Just why, So if it was like this some rigged game, I would go with that versus anything to do with Biden. I don't think that she cares about Biden, but I think the girl can write a beat. That's what I'll say.
But you actually bring up a great point, though. How far have any of us traveled when we just started dating someone, like early in a relationship? Because they've only been on. It's not like they're a long time. Like, Amanda, what's the first? Have you ever flown halfway around the world for someone you were early in the dating?
If he was paying, I would do it, but I don't have the kind of money. But I have never done that. No, I'm not of that class. But
even like, what's the furthest you've traveled? Have you gone over the bridge, like in George Washington Bridge? You went to Pennsylvania.
I went to Pennsylvania.
What about you, Brian? Before we talk about Taylor, what's the furthest you've ever gone? Like early, not like a long time relationship. They're just together for a short time, Taylor and Travis Kelce. So how far have you traveled? And if you haven't, is there a limit? Is it 100 miles as a crow flies? Like, how does it work with you?
I took the Hudson River line to see a girl once in Red Hook. That was about it was like a 3-hour train ride. That was about as far as I went.
Did it work out well? Was it worth it? Like, did you
No,
continue
it didn't work out. I married somebody else.
She lost the Wally. What about you? Any kind of traveling involved early in a relationship that you're like,
I flew her over basically. Yeah.
ah,
Yeah, she was from Beijing. She was a doll.
no.
Does that count?
This you're kidding. Like,
Yes,
so,
I'm kidding, folks. Yes,
right,
I'm
folks,
kidding.
you've
No,
never have you ever traveled anywhere early
Yeah.
in a relationship?
Oh yeah. When I was dating and I was really into this chick. Yeah, I actually did fly here from California to New York. And actually, the more I think about this, I remember someone came from Holland, from the Netherlands, to visit me.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was a surprise visit too. I did not expect her to show up at my apartment. Yeah, exactly.
She showed up to your wedding.
Wow.
Huh? That's it, right?
Showed up at your wedding. What are you doing
Yeah.
here? I'm here to object.
She was very wealthy actually, and
Wow.
yeah, and she called me and she goes, I just want to send you something. What's your address? I'm like, okay, fine. So I told her my address, and like a couple hours later, I get someone at my door, and she goes, surprise. I'm like, whoa.
How did it work? And what happened? We're all intrigued.
Oh, I mean, I invited her up, and I welcomed her in quotes, and then I told her, listen, you can't be doing that, man, because it's dangerous. And what happens if I wasn't there, or I had to travel, or whatever? And she's like, yeah, I understand. And I really never heard from her again. But
Wow.
it was pretty scary. Yeah.
Well, she's joining us now live. Let's Ingrid. It's Wally. I don't know what her
She's
name
here.
is. She's on this show. We found her. I don't know what her name is. Ingrid is the best I could do on short notice.
That was close enough.
I traveled. I went out with my girlfriend, who's still my girlfriend now. That we went on 3 dates or 4 dates, and then she went back to the Middle East where she's from, and then I flew there. And met her family, and then she came back and then moved in with me. So, and that's how it works. And it's interesting though, because I say early in a relationship, only early in a relationship will you do this. If you're together for someone for 10 years, you're not leaving the building for them. Like, look, you're coming back. I know it's always early in the relationship that you do this stuff. It's not now. It's like, I'm gonna fight. What? No, So I'm just making sense of it all. Amanda's nodding. She says yes, she understands. So
No, I completely understand that.
Let's continue on here. So not connected to the conspiracy theory, on a much more serious note, we're reminded that there's no place safe in America from gun violence. And there was the Kansas City Chiefs parade, and one person was killed, a DJ, and about 9 or 10 other people were injured. Or actually 20 were injured, including some children at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl victory parade. And Republicans in Missouri were they're not going to offer anything. They don't, so I just wish they would come out and go, well, that's an acceptable law. Because that's what they're saying to us, that, hey, okay, someone died, a bunch of kids were shot. That's life. We're not going to change the law because we believe, I don't know if it's God's will or the Second Amendment or this is what our base wants. But Brian, I mean, is this just the world we accept now? Is it even worth it to talk about laws to save lives from gun violence? Because we know Republicans will never pass them, so we can't get them through.
I mean, we have to find some way to not get exhausted by this, but it's hard not to be. I think what I'm more concerned about is, are they going to ban parades? I feel like they will ban parades before they ban guns.
It's true. And I agree. Yeah.
That's a good point.
And
I agree.
I'm very worried about that. I think that's how ridiculous we've gotten, is that we would say, well, let's just not gather in public before we'll look at the obvious answer. And I don't know what it's going to take for us to look at other countries that do have guns, but don't have this problem.
I think it's a great point. Republicans, instead of blaming the guns, will blame, why did you go to the theater? Why did you go to the food store? You're an idiot. People get shot there.
Why didn't you have a gun with you? That's what they'll say.
Yeah, like don't they have guns in aisle 3 at the food store? They should be selling guns in aisle 3 loaded, that if someone comes in with a gun, you could shoot them. You're right. It's interesting. And we live in New York City. I think you live in New York City, right, Amanda?
Yeah.
Or the outskirts. I'm not asking that.
Yeah.
So, but like in New York and New Jersey, we have some gun violence, but it's not horrific. I don't think I'm ever fearful of anything going anywhere in New York because there might be gun violence here. So even in a big city, we've passed laws in New York that make sense, and New Jersey as well that make sense, and it's having an impact. At least
Yeah.
that's what I feel like it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in New Jersey, it's very hard to get a gun. I know I have a few friends that have inquired about it. You need references. I mean, it's not, you can't just go to Walmart and pick up a gun, not in New Jersey. It's very difficult. So I think that attributes to it. So,
I mean, interestingly, Amanda, your friends who said they wanted to get a gun, did that ever come out of like an argument with you? They're like, I'm going to get a gun. Like, was it ever like that?
dating me for 6 months. Like,
They're like, I'm getting a gun. Do they sell them? No, you can't. You have to wait. There's a waiting period. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Wally, what do we do? Just accept this? I mean, even with suicide, I don't know if people are aware of this, but so about 110, 120 people die a day in America involving a gun. 2/3 of that are suicide. It's only 1/3 that are murders. But if you say, well, you can't do anything about it, you can, because in states that have 3-day waiting periods to buy a gun, the suicide by gun rate goes down because in that 3 days, people often get help, or that moment of utter depression and desperation passes. So you could even reduce deaths by suicide, but Republicans won't even do that. I don't know what we have to do in this country to go like, what? They're pro-life. That's what they tell us, but they don't do anything that will save lives in this country.
It's amazing. I think what they should do is set it, if you're gonna have a parade, set the date, and then a day before that date, change the date. And so then people will go like, oh man, I'm busy on that day. And then they'll have other things to do. And I'm kidding.
Anything without gun, right? Anything. The idea is nothing with the guns. Like 4th of July parade. What did you expect, you idiot? That's what they're going to say to us.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to figure out, what does the NRA have on this country? Because it seems like it always goes back to the NRA that are saying, hey, let's keep these guns. In fact, we need more guns, protect us from the guns. And I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with this country or this government that's so afraid, that's so intimidated by the NRA to say, we're gonna throw a couple of laws, and then they're like, nope, not, we're not making that happen. And these Republicans, like, how they don't want to take accountability for it, and they kind of like spin it in some way and try to make it like it's your fault for celebrating. It's your fault for, like you're saying, going to get groceries. It's your fault for, having your kids go to school, and they go, see, well, thoughts and prayers, but you shouldn't have done that. And then let's move on.
That's it. The whole idea. Why couldn't you dodge the bullet? I've seen The Matrix. Dodge bullets. It's your fault for getting in the way of the projectile, and you owe that person for the bullet.
Right.
I'm chatting with our friends Wali Collins, Amanda Gail, and of course Brian Wohl. So let's take a break. I want to come back. Jon Stewart came back on Monday. Wally, you know Jon? I mean, you know Jon from the comedy world. So, and so I want to talk about it because I was really happy he was back. I really liked the show, but some of my fellow liberals didn't like the show too much. And it kind of caught me off guard, to be honest. Some of the level of criticism, slightly over the top for a guy on Comedy Central. But let's take a break and we'll come back with more of the show right after this. Ready? We're coming back. And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're continuing our conversation here Friday, February 16th with Amanda, Gail, Brian Wohl, and Wali Collins. So Jon Stewart is back every Monday, and he's EPing the show, at least in name, for the rest of the week. I don't know if he's there or not, or he's whatever he is, but he's hosting on Mondays. And I was really excited about it. Before that, I wrote about it, and he is back, and I liked the first show very much. But I'll read some of the comments from some of my fellow progressives. Like Keith Olbermann said, well, after 9 years away, there's nothing else to say to the both-siders fraud Jon Stewart bashing Biden, except please make it another 9 years. Another elected official in Tennessee is a Democrat saying, wow, so you basically say because Biden's old, he's basically as bad as Trump. Why the F do we never learn in this country? Sorry, but I won't be watching you either. And I had comments similar to that vein. I wrote an article for my Substack about this. People were like, I hope he fails. And no one asked for him to be, taken off the air, but they're like, I hope it gets canceled. I hope the ratings suck. And it was all because he told jokes about Biden's age and about Trump. And you could debate, should he have told more about Trump than Biden on that? But he's a comedian and it was funny. So Wally, let's start with you, since you know Jon from years in the comedy world. I mean, were you happy he's back? And what's the take of this? Like, people getting mad at a comedian on Comedy Central. He's not on MSNBC. He's not part of the DNC. He's a comedian.
Well, I mean, the thing I like about it, he's a comedian, but what I like about Jon, like, he's fair. It's everybody's fair game. And, was he lying? No. So but he tells what's on his what's on his mind. He tells the truth, and he puts it out there, and it is Comedy Central. So if you want to get serious, MSNBC's there, CNN still there, but the whole point of the channel, it is called Comedy Central. It's the central of comedy. So you're gonna have different genres of comedy, but basically it's starting out from comedy. Move on, come on, man. But I'm really glad that he's back, and that show right there, if you really think about it, the Daily Show, brought a lot of young people into politics and understood, what's going on in the world. So you should be patting him on the back that, in fact, that he's back.
You're absolutely right. And polls show that younger people, surveys years ago showed as many young people were getting their news from Jon Stewart as they were from NBC or CBS. And cable, overall, cable news is dying because people are disconnecting from their cable. So you can watch it on YouTube or not. Amanda, I mean, are we now in a world that if you tell jokes about Joe Biden, that some people on the left are going to be so upset because somehow you're both citing the issues where it's a comedian telling jokes, and I think the comedian should have free reign to mock whatever you want, and you can tell your jokes if you don't like them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was more of a Colbert Report fan, so I would like that to come back. But I do love me some Jon Stewart. I mean, he's insanely smart, obviously. But I'm just so confused. All he did was joke about his age. I mean, come on, that's all the things I mean, it's not like he criticized his policy. It's like, I don't know, is that bad? He is old. He's old. He's in his 80s. I don't know I don't see what's so terrible about saying that. So it seems weird that the left is going. I mean, and isn't that the left's biggest problem is the infighting? There's a lot of, we have more civil war in our party more than the Republicans do. They're more loyal to each other. Isn't that the problem with the party?
I don't know. It's hard to say. There are some liberals who had no problem with this whatsoever. Others like he's a comedian, but within the left, there are some who are extremely, extremely progressive, some more moderate progressive, or even just moderate. You also have some who are like purists now. Like if you say one thing,
yeah, you can't say
that. Well, no, that's it. You're dead to us, and that's a weird thing. I don't like that at all. That's. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can't say old if you're a progressive. You have to say person of 80s.
He's 81. If people think it's not like Jon Stewart invented that he's old. It's not like Jon Stewart's the first person. Polls show that's a real issue for a lot of people. The goal for Democrats, as I say in my show, is to make that issue way down the list of important things like reproductive freedom. Forcing women against their will to carry a fetus to term by law is barbarism. And that should be like one of the biggest issues. Preserving our democracy. Those are the issues. So is Biden old? Yeah. Is Trump old? Yeah. But what are the top issues that are going to get people to vote? If you think an 81-year-old guy, he'll be 82, is too old, well, there's nothing I can say to you. But if you care more about like freedom and democracy, you might make the age thing a little lower on the list. That's all my point.
But I guess because you said the word old, you can't say that word anymore.
I mean, challenged by time. I don't know what you're saying. Brian, what do you say with a big V on your sweater? I love that. I wish everyone could see. It's radio. I'm posting this on YouTube, folks, so you can see Brian's sweater. It's a great V for vendetta or victory. So, Brian, where do you come down on? I know as fellow comedians, I have an idea, but the idea of people can be upset with a comedian, right? I'm not saying you can't criticize Jon. So if you don't like comedians' jokes, you have every right to criticize him. But sort of this like he's a threat to democracy language I heard from someone like that's a bit much. He's just a comedian on Comedy Central.
And this is Jon Stewart's return to the Daily Show. So he's coming into the room for the first time after being off for years. If he doesn't acknowledge the obvious thing in the room, then everyone's going to say you're full of it. So I think that's part of why he came out with that right away. And maybe I'm being a little tinfoil hat here, but you feel free to call me out. But I think that Jon Stewart doing this has pushed the conversation forward for the Democratic Party, because the next night on CNN, AOC went on with Jake Tapper and said, Joe Biden is the greatest president in my lifetime. And I think that happens because Jon Stewart starts this conversation being a little critical of how the Democratic Party is putting Joe Biden forward. I think this is helpful. And I think liberals need to look at that as well. And I thought AOC performed very well on Tuesday. And I think we need to think about how we're framing this conversation, exactly like what you said, Dean, talking about the actual issues at hand instead of just who's old. And, we already did this. This was the last election cycle anyway.
We have a lot of real issues, the economy, keeping it strong, preserving democracy, women having a fundamental right to control their own destiny, which is really important. And it affects women. And of course, men, it affects in other ways, but women, it really is barbaric to be that in 14 states at day one of conception, women have lost the right to control their own bodies. Their uterus becomes state property. And even in most of those states, if they are raped, they're forced to carry the rapist fetus to term against their will. Even if they're not raped, forcing them against their will is a human rights violation, as Ewan said. And in America, the media doesn't cover that with the urgency or with the intensity it should. That they should be saying, this is barbarism. The idea of forcing a woman to carry a fetus against their will to term, this is barbaric. Women are dying. We're seeing studies, maternal mortality is already horrific in America. Now force more women to carry a fetus to term when they have health risks, and you're killing more, and they don't care. And our media's like, I think Biden's old. So I will say this: if John every show did long runs on Biden's age, I'd be like, okay, that's just lazy comedy. I don't think we're going to see that. I think the first one was this show. I think you'll see other things, but I would be critical if every show was like 10 minutes of his 20-minute monologue. Biden's old. I'd be like, come on, let's get to other stuff that really matters. That's my big takeaway at that. So, all right, let's talk about, this was really weird. CNN had this exclusive reporting. A woman found out through a DNA test she had many more siblings than she knew she had. And it gets even weirder. It turns out she has 22 siblings. She didn't know that. What had happened was the doctor where her mother went for a fertility assistance, he used his own sperm to inseminate his mother and others without their consent. I mean, it was consent about insemination, but he didn't say, I'm the father. So nobody knew. And he apparently inseminated lots of women. So a lot of people were related, and she found out a guy she dated in high school and almost married was her half brother. And I'm like, well, there's the wrinkle. There's the weird. You're like, wow, wow. Okay. There should be some requirement that everything is posted in this, but Amanda, what's your reaction? And have you ever dated a half brother? Maybe it's normal. Maybe I'm missing something.
I feel very
a first cousin, a second cousin, anything.
Yeah, I feel very triggered, and I feel very, this is a very relatable story to me. So thank you for picking me to go first. But no, I think that would be the thing that would piss me off more. I mean, if the guy had like great genes, maybe I wouldn't be upset. He's like a Princeton, whatever. But
yeah, he was related to you? I mean, what's your line? First cousin?
He's related.
Where do you draw the line, Amanda? Second cousin?
He inseminated his
No, she found out the guy she dated turned out to be a sibling, a half sibling.
Yeah, that would piss me off. I'd be upset about that, especially if I was really thought he was like the one. Like, it's so hard to find men these days. Like, if I found a great guy and then, oh God, of course he's my brother. Like,
we have so much in common. Wow, we see the world alike. We have a lot in common. And
I think that would
genetically,
happen. The love of your life, and you find he's your brother. You're like, God is not fair. Like, it's not real. But yeah, I think it's disgusting, and I think it's a violation of trust of a doctor. And yeah, it's nuts. I'm sorry that happened to her.
Have you done a DNA test, by the way?
Yes, I have. I've done the 23andMe.
Any surprises?
I'm 100% Ashkenazi Jew.
That's 100%?
Yes.
Wow.
Nothing.
I had a lot of friends who got back like the 1% Jewish, right? Yeah. And I'm like, this is genius. What I want to do is that everybody comes back 1% Muslim, so people like Muslims better. They're like, how can I hate them? We're all turned out I'm part Muslim. Not that you could be. There's no. Meanwhile, you're laughing because you can't be. It's a religion. It's not an ethnicity or genetic thing. But for Ashkenazi Jews, I guess from Europe, right? From parts of Europe, and that's the way it identifies. That's interesting. I came back exactly half Italian, half Arab. And the Arab side's all over. It goes from half of my DNA on that side is African. Like, it really is. It goes to like Middle Africa and then across the Middle East into like Jordan and to almost I'm not sure how it got to Saudi, but the Italian side of me was all from the same place. They're like, we're done. They put the chair out. Nobody moved. They put a chair on the lawn. So my Italian side, 100% Sicilian. My Arab side from mid-Africa all the way to like Saudi. Wally, have you ever done a DNA test, Wally?
Didn't do a DNA test, but I had an uncle who was into what is it, genealogy?
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not? Make it the term.
Why not? Yeah. Sure. We go back as far as who owned us.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was very interesting. Collins, obviously. My last name's Collins, and so People don't know. Yeah, when you're slave, you take the last name of your enslaver. But I do have some Native American in me, and yeah, and Irish actually.
Collins, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, but it's I want to give a shout out to a comedian named Laura High.
Yeah.
She was or is, I guess, is a donor baby,
Yeah.
and her act is about that, and she's a huge advocate for against these doctors who basically inseminate these women who don't know that he's using the doctors are using their sperm to inseminate these women. And this one doctor, they find out he had close to 500 children. And but yeah, so once again, I want to shout out to Laura High. Check out her stuff because it's fascinating. And they're actually going to they're working on doing a documentary on Netflix about how that's just one doctor that's been doing it, and there's no laws against it, believe it or not.
That's bizarre. How do you, you would need to know this because of the fact that it could be someone related, that not just a relationship, but for whatever reason that you would at least want to know this.
Yeah, that's another thing too. And she was saying the point of for your health, your health history, and you're under this impression that this person has da 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 da, and it could be wrong. You could have other problems, because this doctor's not truthful and inseminating, with his DNA and all that. So it's very, very dangerous, actually.
There was a documentary with Vince Vaughn all about this.
Oh yeah, the comedy. Yeah.
It wasn't a
documentary.
It was
a documentary.
Right. A whole Dr. Vince Vaughn did the whole thing. Brian, what about you here? First of all, did you take a DNA test ever? And do you know what you are?
I avoided it. My parents did it because I said to them, I was like, why would Jewish people want to put themselves on a list? Don't do it. What are you doing? But now they found out, and being Jewish, it's a race. If you kill enough of people in a religion, you get to a race. It's wild.
So did your parents come back? Were there different ethnicities that surprised them, or no?
No, it was Ashkenazi Jew and then Austrian, it was just white people.
Well, that's very interesting that it comes back like that. I've never dated a relative. There was a cousin on my mom's side, Italian side, not the Arab side, because you would think that was where you would date a cousin. She was like a second cousin. She was pretty hot when I was younger. I'm like, I'm not sure. But we ended up not dating. So, but I contemplated. There was no Google then. I had to look stuff up. What would happen if I dated my second cousin? Never did, but it would have been interesting. All right, so let's see what else we got going on. A couple other things here. We have, okay, this is really weird. And Amy Schumer, who I knew from the earliest days of comedy. I mean, I emceed shows at Gotham when she was a new comic, and we were in many shows together, and she's been wildly successful and doing a good job. Last time I saw her was pre-COVID at some rally at something, and we chatted for a little while, and I interviewed her for my show. She was really nice. So she goes on, I believe it was the Tonight Show, and her face was, I saw a picture, and it was very puffy, and people were like, is this plastic surgery gone wrong and all that? And instantly when I saw it, I'm like, there's something going on, something medical. And sure enough, it was. And she pointed out she has a condition called endometriosis, which I might be, but she's puffier than normal because of that, and saying historically women's bodies have barely been studied medically compared to men, and that this is due to a medical condition going on. And I wonder, would men, if it was a famous guy who went on, I wonder as much, because society loves to comment, and a lot of people are very mean in the comments to Amy Schumer about this. So Amanda, what do you think? If Tom Cruise came on and he was very puffy, I'm sure people would raise it. But with Amy Schumer, from what I read, it really got into cruel and mocking and stuff like that.
Yeah, it is cruel and mocking, but I do have to give kudos to her, because I think she really is a role model for, even if you don't look your most gorgeous, to go out there and be seen and be heard. And I think that's great for women to see that. You don't have to be perfect to be heard and seen. And I like that. So
it's a challenging time.
It is, yeah.
Wally, what do you think? It's today's world of social media just amplifies this. And if you read comments about yourself, whoever, stuff that I may have posted about you, Wally, whatever, I'm just saying, let's throw that out there. If you're famous, I can only imagine what you got on Instagram. It would just been tons. And if you got to be strong as a comic, it's hard being secure, but if you've got to be so secure, because this is
Yeah.
horrible. And they're going after your looks when it has to do with not your looks, but a health condition.
But it just makes people feel good if they can somehow, some way belittle someone who they think is above them.
Yeah.
It's they all call it fair game, I guess. But no, to be honest, I don't look at comments anything about me because I don't have my ego is nowhere near strong enough to hear anything negative about me. Or even if they say something positive about me, I'll do it. I'm like, nah, that's not true. But yeah, I mean, kudos to her. She's, she took it, on the chin, and then, say, hey, listen, this is a reality of life. I have a medical condition, and this is how it happens to human beings, and she said, I said it, let's move on.
And she urged women, she said, I urge women,
Yes.
It's an autoimmune disease that every woman should read about. And her point was there's not enough research into ailments women have. I remember at Gotham when I met her, she was a new comic and she was really funny. She had a really funny joke that stuck with me. She said she was on the subway. I'm paraphrasing. So if it's not funny, blame me. It's not her. But she was on the subway and some woman had the Bible and said to her, have you found Jesus yet? And she goes, oh, we found him. And it's really, that was such a funny joke. It made me laugh forever. And so, Brian, what about you? I mean, the idea that women are held to this other standard, we know that in society, and I can only imagine it's been amplified by social media and to the point of cruelty, and where they just had hearings on Capitol Hill where there are family members there who had lost their children who had committed suicide because of what they saw. And a lot of it were young women, young teens.
The pressure on everyone is higher than ever. We instead of just comparing ourselves to the people in the neighborhood or the people in our town, we're comparing ourselves to everyone on the internet. It's really spooky. And maybe I'm also getting a little conspiratorial about this Amy Schumer thing, but I think people are extra critical of her because she's related to Chuck Schumer. I think that's part of it, and I think they go at her because of that.
Well, that's true. I didn't think about that. I thought you were kidding, but you're right. For the people on the right, yes, because she's really Chuck Schumer and she's appeared with Chuck Schumer political things. The minute you intersect politics in today's world, it so hypes up and amplifies the anger that people have. It's sad, but this is the world. Well, I wish Amy the best, and I hope that she's doing well. She was just on. She's directed some new show, and that's what she was talking about. So before we run out of time, I want to give each of you time to plug what you're working on, where people can see your shows. So Amanda, let's start with you. Where can people see your stuff?
Obviously on social media, the Amanda Gail. I have a podcast called The Audacity with Karen Margolis. I'm going to be headlining in Connecticut at Fairfield Comedy Circle, March 23rd. So I hope people come out to see me there. And I also post dates and shows. So come see me in New York. I'll be with
Check
Dean
her out. She's very funny.
Thank you.
And Brian, what about you, my friend? Where can people see you? I know you're always doing stuff and you have a podcast as well.
Yeah, I'll be on tour this spring featuring for Lou Berger, the comedy band. This weekend we'll be at Just for Laughs Vancouver, so come on out there. There's a couple tickets left for our Seattle shows, and then we'll be at the Netflix is a Joke Festival in May. So
that's great.
So check out my stuff, and hopefully I see folks on the road this year.
Wally, a lot of pressure. Can you top this? I mean, I don't want to get into it, but there's a lot of people doing a lot of good stuff. What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty busy. I got laundry folding. No, let's see. I'll be my show called Jokes and Jazz. I was curating at Lincoln Center. It's we're putting on a tour. The first spot's gonna be tomorrow, Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Jokes and Jazz at Soul Joel's, Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Sunday I'll be at the Comedy Cellar. And then next Friday, I'll be at the Comic Strip in New York City. The Comedy Cellar in New York City and the Comic Strip next Friday in New York City. And then Saturday, tomorrow, I guess, be in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. It's called Jokes and Jazz and at Soul Joel's.
And where do people get tickets if they live in that area? Where can they go?
They can go online, Soul Joel's online. And I think they're between $20 and $30. And the venue is amazing. It's like this huge like ballroom, and cool. Yeah, you'll like it. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
So-
Basically, that's what it is: music and laughs, jokes,
Right.
jokes and jazz.
But even if you don't like the music or the jazz, the room's great, folks. So that's worth the price of
Exactly. You
admission.
can
So
stare at
check
the
that out. It's a
ceiling.
huge room. How often do you get to see a beautiful, nice room like that?
There
I'm
you go.
actually gonna. I never plug myself. I'm actually gonna be at the New York Comedy Club tomorrow, 5:00, and Rye Daddy's show. Amanda knows Rye Daddy, and Sunday at the Comic Strip. For what it's worth, in New York City, here, people around. Well, thank all three of you for being on. I really appreciate it.